following an undisclosed medical event on the 7th of January this year. The astronauts are Zena Cardman, Mike Fincke, Kimiya and Oleg Platonov. It's the latest that we are tracking from the broadcast at the moment. All right, this is of course live visuals coming in at the moment. This is the first ever medical departure of Crew-11 astronauts. They're aboard the SpaceX Dragon Endeavour. This is live. This marks the first ever controlled medical evacuation in the 25-year history of the International Space Station. SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule is carrying NASA's Mike Fincke and Zena Cardman, Japan's Kimiya and Russian cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. It's of course taking place at the moment. The quartet was supposed to stay in space for another month or so, but are now coming home early because one crew member experienced a medical issue. This is the first time in the history of the International Space Station that a mission has been shortened due to an astronaut's health issue. With me on the broadcast is my colleague Asavri Jindal. Asavri, over to you. Walk our viewers through what we are seeing at the moment. It does seem that the astronauts have now landed. They've splashed down safely.
Absolutely, Pia. What we're seeing at the moment is history being scripted. The Dragon capsule Endeavour with Crew-11 astronauts has, of course, splashed down. As you can see on your screens, they're now departing. And, of course, to tell a little bit more about these astronauts, there are astronauts from Russia, Japan as well, US astronaut Zena Cardman and Mike Fincke, Russian cosmonaut Oleg Platonov, and in fact, Japanese astronaut Kimiya are back on Earth after being launched into space in August 2025. They were, as you rightly pointed out, supposed to be there for 6 months in the orbit, but a few hours before a scheduled spacewalk, one of the astronauts fell sick and NASA decided to bring them back early. There's also, in fact, a press conference that is expected to take place today at 5:45 EST. We're, of course, going to be keeping our eyes peeled for that. But for now, like I said, Pia, what's happening right now as we speak with the live visuals that we're tracking very closely is history being scripted. This is, like you said, the first ever medical evacuation that is taking place, and it helps us understand the kind of potential that we've now gotten into as far as our cosmic endeavors, as far as our future is concerned. Back to you.
Indeed, Asavri, to add to that, NASA has not until now identified the affected astronaut or given details about the health issue, citing, of course, privacy concerns. But the agency has stated that the crew member is stable, stressing that this is not a crisis situation. The Crew-11 mission has lasted 167 days, with 165 of them spent aboard the ISS. It was, of course, the first space flight for Cardman and Platonov, the second for and the fourth for Fincke. has now spent a total of 309 days in space, while Fincke's accumulated off-Earth time is 549 days as well. Now, the Crew-11's departure has left just 3 people on the orbiting lab. It is NASA's Christopher Williams and cosmonauts Sergei Shverskov and Sergei Mikhayev, who arrived on the 27th of November aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft. The trio will likely have the place to themselves for about a month or so, as Crew-11's successor mission, SpaceX's 4-person Crew-12, is currently scheduled to launch on the 15th of February. NASA has in fact stated that it might try to accelerate that liftoff a bit and conduct it a little earlier, but any change likely would not be a big one. NASA officials meanwhile stated that they are not worried about the orbital staffing shortage, which will leave Williams to operate the station's American segment by himself as well. The 3-person crew was the standard for nearly a decade on the ISS, which has been staffed continuously by rotating astronaut crews since November 2000. The baseline was doubled to 6 in 2009, then upped again to 7 in 2020. But you're of course witnessing, as Asavri pointed out, history being scripted with the first ever medical evacuation being recorded in the International Space Station's 25-year history. On that note, viewers, it's a wrap on this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on Newsx.